The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just dropped an absolute bomb about the 2020 election. And let's just say a lot of skeptics are going to be proven right in the coming months. You gotta check this out.
As we approach Labor Day weekend here, this is just such a great opportunity really to recognize your leadership as a true champion for working people. And I know we'll hear as we go around the table here how your focus singularly on putting the well-being and interests of the American people first is that common thread that we're seeing in your policies being implemented across your administration. For ODNI, number one, our focus is and must always be making sure that our intelligence community is focused on our mission, keeping the American people safe, secure, and free. We're doing great work on this front. I'll point out our National Counterterrorism Center, led by Director Joe Kent, are working across different agencies with Homeland Security, DEA, FBI, and others to catch terrorists, both those who are trying to come into our country, those who may already be in our country. They are finding the worst of the cartel bosses and making sure that they're not able to continue to wreak havoc and terror in our communities. Secondly, Mr. President, you have charged me with the mission of finding the truth and telling the truth to the American people. And we've exposed some of the worst examples of the weaponization of intelligence in the last several weeks. I will continue down that mission and that path wherever it leads. Transparency, telling the truth is what will drive true accountability for the American people who deserve nothing less. And lastly, Mr. President, all of us are charged with being good stewards of taxpayer dollars. I've gone through a reorganization for ODNI that we've announced in the last week. We've cut nearly half of redundant, unnecessary functions within ODNI, saving taxpayers over $700 million a year. We will continue focusing on our core mission in keeping the American people safe, and appreciate your leadership and your focus on this most critical task.
And you've also found many bags of information. I think they call them burn bags. They're supposed to be burned and they didn't get burned, having to do with how corrupt the 2020 election was. And when will that all come out?
Mr. President, I will be the first to brief you once we have that information collected. But you're right, we are finding documents literally tucked away in the back of safes in random offices, in these bags and in other areas, which again speaks to the intent of those who are trying to hide the truth from the American people and trying to cover up the politicization that was led by people like John Brennan and James Clapper and others that have caused really immeasurable harm to the American people and to our country.
Great job. Thank you. We look forward to hearing it. The public looks forward. Thank you very much.
Earlier, in a surprise appearance at the White House press briefing, Director Gabbard targeted former President Barack Obama and his advisor over the Russia hoax in the 2016 presidential elections.
At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination with the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified oversight majority staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration.
This is the way that I see it. In 2016, they did not imagine in a million years Trump would become the president. The amount of negative press that was about him was overwhelming. They didn't think Trump had a chance. But he surprises them in 2016, and then in that period between Election Day and Inauguration Day, Obama and his team of cronies were in a mad dash to try and disrupt Trump before he was ever able to take power. In regards to 2020, they had 4 years to try and stage an impeachment, and not only did they do it, they did it twice. They have yet to give Donald Trump one fair shot at becoming the presidency and actually rallying behind this man. Everything they do is to try and stop him, disrupt him, get him out of power. So for those who are still skeptical about the 2020 election and whether Trump actually won, just think about this for a moment. If they don't care about the sanctity of the office and they're willing to create fake information to get him out in 2016, you don't think they'd be willing to stage a few fake votes in 2020? I mean, let's be real. Do you actually believe that Joe Biden got more votes than Barack Obama in 2008, the very first African-American president? Joe Biden got more votes, and he never hit the campaign trail. He was hiding in his basement. Nobody believes that, and I think people are starting to wake up that Donald Trump won the presidency 3 separate times.
People deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. The records that we released on Friday that were ODNI records, Senator Chuck Grassley's release on Monday of what is known as the Clinton Annex, which was an appendix to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General's 2018 report, as well as the House Intelligence Committee's majority oversight report that we're releasing today, all come back to and confirm the same report. There was a gross politicization and manipulation of intelligence by the Obama administration intended to delegitimize President Trump even before he was inaugurated, ultimately usurping the will of the American people. I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous.
But the thing is, Hillary Clinton and her pals didn't care how it seemed to the public because they would never be given that information. If you can control a narrative and shape it any way that you want, and the media will follow you up in complete lockstep, then you can essentially manipulate anybody's mind. That's why the news agencies are so important, because you're supposed to be given the truth. People are hearing this and just taking it as gospel. Oh my gosh, Donald Trump is working with Russia? Well, how can we possibly support this man? He's a traitor. Yet there was no evidence of that whatsoever. In fact, it showed the contrary. It showed that Hillary Clinton was such a bad candidate that Russia themselves said, you know what? I want Hillary to get in. She's gonna get in. And when she does, we're gonna release a lot of compromising information about her to weaken her presidency. That way we can do more of what we want and we don't have to be dictated by America. Like, let's be real for a moment. Do you think that Vladimir Putin likes Donald Trump being president? Just think about all the sanctions and how tough that Donald Trump is. Nobody is tougher on Russia than Donald Trump, but he knows how to get along with these leaders. He gets along with Xi Jinping. He gets along with Rocket Man in North Korea. This is what you want. I mean, would you feel safer in a world where Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are sworn enemies? I would feel scared that we're going to get a nuke dropped on us every other day. But the fact is, they have a reliable relationship. They get along with one another, and they know how to get deals done, as you're going to see in the coming weeks when this war finally comes to a close. But enough is really enough. I think Hillary Clinton and anybody involved with spinning this Russia-Trump narrative from 2016, 2017, needs to be held accountable. Something needs to be done. Why they spun this narrative and why they actually were telling people that this was the God's honest truth. They have to have their day in court and answer in front of a judge. I don't think it's a coincidence that Hillary Clinton has disappeared from the public eye. I think she knows she's dead to rights, and if she pipes up and says some things, Donald Trump could say, you know what? Have a special investigator look at what she did in 2016, 2017. Let's see what she was up to, whether or not she committed treason against this country. Because as far as I'm concerned, they all did. Anybody who makes up fake information to confuse the public so that they don't support their sitting president, I have no pity for them, and they need to answer for what they did. It turns out Tulsi Gabbard was the perfect person for the Director of National Intelligence, because she cannot be bought, she cannot be compromised, she stands on principle and that only. That's why I have a lot of respect for her. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Can you think of anyone that would have done a better job as DNI over Tulsi Gabbard? Because I personally cannot. But let me know your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear that. And do you think Hillary is going to have to answer for what you did? Let me know. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.